You see that crack running across your garage floor. The one that gets a little longer every winter? You have filled it 3 times, maybe 4. And every spring, it comes back wider than before. Stop wasting money on concrete patch from the hardware store. There is a $1 mixture, sprayed from a simple garden pump, that seals concrete cracks permanently by turning the crack itself into stone harder than the slab around it. The Amish in Lancaster County have been using this on their dairy barn floors for over 100 years, and those floors are still flat. The first time I saw it done was on a farm outside Gordonville, Pennsylvania, in the fall of 2019. An older Amish gentleman named Amos was walking his milking parlor with a brass pump sprayer, misting the floor like he was watering houseplants. I asked him what he was doing. He smiled and said, "Feeding the concrete." I thought he was joking. He was not. And what he showed me that afternoon traces back to a United States Bureau of Standards report from 1928 that almost nobody has read since. If you already own a home with a cracked driveway, a sunken patio, or a garage slab that looks like a road map, this is exactly for you. Let me back up, because you need to understand what concrete actually is before any of this makes sense. And what it is not what they sell you at the big box store. Concrete is not rock, it never was. Concrete is a chemical reaction that never fully finishes. When Portland cement gets mixed with water, microscopic crystals start forming. Those crystals lock sand and gravel together. But here is what nobody tells you. That reaction only completes about 60% of the way before the concrete dries out. The other 40% of the cement in your slab, in your driveway, in your foundation is just sitting there, dormant, waiting for decades. Researchers at Penn State's Materials Research Institute confirmed this back in the 1990s. They took core samples from concrete bridges poured in the 1950s and found unreacted cement particles still inside. 60 years old, still chemically alive, still capable of forming new crystals if they ever got the one ingredient they were missing. Water. But not just any water. A specific kind of water carrying a specific mineral in a specific ratio. And that is the secret the Amish have been guarding since their ancestors started pouring their own concrete in the early 1900s. They did not learn it from a trade school. They learned it from old German masons who brought the technique over from the Rhineland, where stonemasons had been using it on castle foundations since the Middle Ages. The mixture is absurdly simple, and the materials cost less than a cup of coffee. Sodium silicate. That is the main ingredient. You might know it by its common name, water glass. It is the same substance people use to preserve eggs before refrigeration. You can buy a quart of it for about $8. A quart treats roughly 400 square feet of concrete. That is how we get to about $1 per treatment for a typical garage crack. You mix it with clean water at a ratio of 1 part sodium silicate to 4 parts water. You pour it into a cheap garden pump sprayer, and you mist the crack, slow and patient, letting it soak in. Here's what happens next, and this is where it stopped feeling like folk wisdom and started feeling like buried science. The sodium silicate seeps down into the crack. It finds all those dormant cement particles that never fully reacted. It triggers them. New crystals begin forming inside the crack itself. Within about 72 hours, the crack is not patched. The crack is gone. The space where the crack used to be is now denser, harder, and more waterproof than the concrete around it. The Portland Cement Association tested this exact process in 1952. They found that sodium silicate treated concrete showed a surface hardness increase of up to 400%, water absorption dropped by 70%, and the treatment continued strengthening the concrete for up to 2 years after application. That report is called Bulletin Number 34. You can still find references to it in older engineering textbooks. You will not find it mentioned in any homeowner guide on any big box store shelf. But why not? If this is real, if it costs $1, if it has been documented since the Roosevelt administration, why is nobody talking about it? Because the concrete repair industry in the United States is a $14 billion market, and sodium silicate does not fit in that market. It is too cheap, it lasts too long, it cannot be patented, it cannot be branded, it cannot be sold in a colorful tube with a trigger handle for $24. The companies that manufacture epoxy crack fillers, polyurethane injection kits, and cement patch compounds have spent decades funding trade associations and contractor training programs that do not mention this technique, not because it is illegal, not because it is dangerous, because it puts them out of business. I spent 30 years as a general contractor before I ever heard of it. I sold homeowners on epoxy injection kits. I charged $400 to patch a basement crack that would open up again in 2 winters. I was wrong. I was part of the problem. And the only reason I know better now is because an Amish dairy farmer took pity on me and showed me what his grandfather taught him. Amos walked me through his milking parlor that afternoon in 2019. Concrete floor poured in 1948. 71 years old at the time, not one visible crack. Not one. I got down on my hands and knees with a flashlight, smooth as glass. He told me his father had sprayed it with the sodium silicate mixture every 3 to 5 years since it was poured. That is it. No resurfacing, no repairs, no replacement. 71 years. Now, if you already own a house and you are thinking this only applies to people building from scratch, stay with me, because this next part is specifically for you. You do not need to pour new concrete for this to work. You do not need a contractor. You do not need a permit. You do not need to break anything up. The technique works on concrete that is already in place. Concrete that was poured in 1975. Concrete that was poured last summer. As long as there is any dormant cement left inside the slab, and there almost always is, the reaction will happen. Here is exactly how to do it this weekend. You need 3 things: a quart of sodium silicate, which you can order online or find at a pottery supply store, a 1-gallon garden pump sprayer, the cheap plastic kind, about $12, and a stiff nylon brush. Start by cleaning the crack. Sweep it out, vacuum it if you can. You want no loose debris, no oil, no dust. If the crack has old patching compound in it that is flaking, scrape out what comes out easily. Do not obsess. The sodium silicate will work around imperfect conditions. Mix your solution, 1 part sodium silicate to 4 parts clean water. Tap water is fine. Pour it into the sprayer, pump it up. Now here's where most people get it wrong. Do not flood the crack, mist it. A fine spray held about 8 inches above the concrete, slowly walking along the length of the crack. You want the liquid to absorb, not puddle. Go over it once. Wait 15 minutes. Go over it again. Wait another 15 minutes. Go over it a 3rd time. The concrete will tell you when it is done. When the surface stops absorbing and the liquid starts sitting on top, you are finished. String. But there is a version of this technique that goes even deeper, and this is the part the Amish do not share with outsiders easily. This is what Amos told me at the end of the day when we were sitting on his porch drinking coffee, and he decided I was worth trusting. He called it the finishing touch. His grandfather called it something in Pennsylvania Dutch that translates roughly to living stone. And when I got home and started digging through old engineering records, I found the scientific basis for it in a document called the United States Bureau of Standards, Circular Number 107, published in 1921. The document was written by a man named Rudolph J. Wigg, a bureau engineer who studied concrete durability for the federal government during World War I. It has been out of print since the 1930s. I found a scanned copy in the archives of the National Institute of Standards and Technology. In that circular, Wigg documented a technique where sodium silicate was combined with a second compound, calcium chloride, applied in alternating passes. The sodium silicate soaks in first. Then, after it has absorbed, a dilute calcium chloride solution is misted over the same area. The two chemicals react with each other inside the concrete, forming calcium silicate hydrate, the exact same mineral that gives fresh concrete its strength, but in a denser, harder, more waterproof crystal structure. Wigg measured the results. Concrete treated this way showed compressive strength increases of up to 60%. Permeability dropped to nearly zero. Freeze-thaw resistance went from poor to excellent. This is the technique the Amish use on their foundations. This is why their basements do not leak. This is why their barn floors outlast the barns built on top of them. And this is what I want you to take away from this video, because it is the one thing that will change how you think about every piece of concrete you own. Calcium chloride is sold as ice melt at every hardware store in the country. A 10-pound bag costs about $8. You mix 1 cup of it into a gallon of water. That is your second solution. After you have sprayed the sodium silicate, waited 3 days, and brushed the surface clean, you come back with the calcium chloride solution and mist it lightly over the same area. Wait 24 hours. Rinse with clean water. That is it. What you have done in 2 weekends of work for less than $20 in materials is replicate a federal government concrete hardening protocol from 1921 that has been sitting in an archive for 100 years. Your driveway is now harder than the day it was poured. Your cracks are sealed permanently. Your concrete will outlive you, and it will outlive your children. Amos told me something before I left that farm. He said, "The English pay to fix what should not have broken. We pay once, and then we just maintain." Maintain, not repair. There is a difference, and that difference is the whole thing. You were never supposed to know this. The people who sell you tubes of crack filler, the people who charge you $400 per hour to inject epoxy into your basement walls, the people who tell you concrete is disposable and you should just replace the slab every 20 years, they were counting on you not knowing. They were counting on Rudolph Wigg's 1921 circular staying buried. They were counting on the Amish staying quiet. But you know now. And a sprayer costs $12, and a quart of sodium silicate costs $8, and a bag of calcium chloride costs $8, and the knowledge that every crack in your home is not a problem, but an opportunity. That knowledge costs nothing. If you are the kind of person who believes that real knowledge has been quietly pushed aside to protect someone else's profit, you already know what to do next. I want to hear from you. Tell me in the comments, how old is the oldest crack in your concrete right now? Is it in your driveway, your garage floor, your basement wall? Write it down below. I read every comment, and I want to know what you are working with before you try this. If this is the kind of knowledge you have been looking for, subscribe and stay with me. This channel is not about videos. It is about recovering what was taken from us, one forgotten technique at a time. Next week, I am going to show you the Amish method for sealing a metal roof with a material that costs 9 cents per square foot and outlasts every commercial coating on the market. It involves something most homeowners throw away every fall. And once you see it, you will never look at your roof the same way again, Before I let you go, I want to take you deeper into this because there are details I glossed over that deserve your full attention, and there are people whose names history forgot who should be spoken out loud. Let me take you back to the winter of 1903 in a small cement research outpost just outside of Allentown, Pennsylvania. A chemist named Lewis Henry Kramer was working under contract for a regional masonry guild, and his job was simple on paper. Find out why some barn foundations lasted 90 years while others crumbled in 15. Kramer was not a famous man. He has no Wikipedia entry today. You will not find his portrait in any engineering textbook. But the notebooks he kept, which were later donated to the Lehigh County Historical Society in 1962 by his granddaughter Mildred, contain something extraordinary. On page 47 of his third notebook, dated February 11, 1903, Kramer wrote a single sentence in pencil that I have thought about for years. He wrote, "The silica treatment does not repair the stone. It teaches the stone to repair itself." That is not engineering language. That is almost theological language. And yet it is exactly correct, because what sodium silicate does when it penetrates a hairline crack is not patching. It is not filling. It is not gluing. It is reactivating the very chemistry that made the concrete harden in the first place. The calcium hydroxide that is still present in cured concrete, even concrete that is 60 or 70 years old, is waiting for a partner. Sodium silicate is that partner. And when they meet deep inside the capillary network of the slab, they produce calcium silicate hydrate, the exact same compound that gives fresh concrete its strength. You are not repairing your driveway. You are continuing the curing process that was interrupted decades ago. Now think about what that means. Think about the driveway your grandfather poured in 1958. Think about the basement floor in the house you bought in 1994. Every one of those surfaces still contains unreacted calcium hydroxide. Every one of them is, in a chemical sense, still willing to harden further. The industry knows this. The industry has known this since at least the 1890s, when the Ransom brothers in California were experimenting with what they called liquid stone treatments on reinforced concrete bridge decks in Sacramento County. Ernest Ransom himself wrote in an 1897 trade letter to the San Francisco Builders Exchange that a properly silicated slab shall outlast the memory of the man who poured it. That letter exists. It is archived at the Bancroft Library at UC Berkeley, and anyone with a reader's card can hold it in their hands. So why did this knowledge die? I want to give you the honest answer because I owe you that. It did not die because of one villain. It died because of a slow, grinding process involving three forces working in parallel. The first force was the rise of the ready-mix concrete industry after World War II. Between 1946 and 1960, the number of ready-mix plants in the United States went from roughly 400 to over 3,000. Those plants made money by pouring new concrete, not by helping homeowners preserve old concrete. The second force was the American Concrete Institute's gradual shift during the 1950s and 1960s toward performance specifications written almost entirely around new construction. If you read the ACI 318 standard from 1956 and compare it to the 1971 revision, you will see the section on rehabilitation of existing concrete shrink from 14 pages down to a single paragraph. The third force, and this is the one that makes me angry every time I think about it, was the patenting wave of the 1970s and 1980s, when large chemical companies began trademarking proprietary blends that were essentially sodium silicate with marketing. A product that cost $1 to make was being sold for $45 a gallon under a brand name, and suddenly there was a powerful financial incentive to stop mentioning that the active ingredient was something you could buy at an agricultural supply store for pocket change. There was a man named Harold Voss, a contractor out of Sandusky, Ohio, who in 1978 tried to publish a homeowner's guide to silicate treatment through a small regional press. I have a photocopy of the cover. It is titled The Forgotten Seal, a practical guide to permanent concrete. The print run was supposed to be 5,000 copies. The actual number that made it to bookstores was under 300. Voss died in 1984, and his widow told a local newspaper reporter that in the last years of his life he believed his book had been deliberately buried by distributors who had relationships with the proprietary sealant manufacturers. I cannot prove that. I can only tell you that the book is nearly impossible to find today, and that the few copies that surface on auction sites routinely sell for over $200. Let me return to the practical side, because I want you to be successful when you try this, and there are small details that make the difference between a result that lasts 5 years and a result that lasts 50. First, temperature matters more than people realize. The reaction between sodium silicate and calcium hydroxide slows dramatically below 50 degrees Fahrenheit, and it essentially stops below 40. If you are in Minnesota in November, wait for spring. If you are in Arizona in July, do it at dawn before the slab hits 110 degrees, because at that temperature, the silicate solution will flash off the surface before it can penetrate. The sweet spot is between 60 and 75 degrees Fahrenheit, with the concrete itself feeling cool to the touch. Second, moisture matters. The old books, including a 1934 extension bulletin from Iowa State College of Agriculture and Mechanic Arts, recommend dampening the concrete with clean water about 2 hours before application. Not soaking. Dampening. You want the capillary network of the concrete to be primed to pull the silicate solution deeper, and a dry slab in summer will often reject the first coat by letting it sit on the surface. A lightly pre-dampened slab will drink the solution like a thirsty animal. Third, and this is something almost no modern source will tell you, the second coat is more important than the first. The first coat opens the pathway. The second coat, applied 24 to 48 hours later, completes the reaction. Rudolph Wigg's 1921 circular specifically recommended 3 applications spaced 2 days apart for barn floors that would see heavy livestock traffic, and field reports from the Pennsylvania Dutch communities in Lancaster County show that floors treated this way in the 1920s were still functionally sealed when they were surveyed by a graduate student from Penn State in 1987. 67 years, 1 treatment protocol, 3 applications spaced 2 days apart. That is the real specification, and you will not find it printed on any bottle at the hardware store. There is one more ingredient I want to mention, because some of the old recipes include it, and I have had readers ask me about it. A small amount of potassium silicate mixed at roughly 1 part potassium silicate to 4 parts sodium silicate will increase the flexibility of the final reaction product. This matters if your concrete is in a location that sees significant thermal movement, such as a south-facing driveway that expands and contracts every day. The Amish farmers in Holmes County, Ohio, were known to add wood ash leachate to their silicate mix. And the potassium carbonate in the wood ash was, whether they understood the chemistry or not, functioning as a source of potassium ions that softened the final crystalline structure just enough to prevent brittle failure. This is folk knowledge that predates the chemistry that explains it, and it is exactly the kind of thing the industry pretends does not exist. I want to address the skeptics directly, because I know some of you are watching this thinking it sounds too good to be true. You are right to be skeptical. Most things on the internet that promise miracle fixes are selling you something. So let me tell you what sodium silicate will not do. It will not bridge a crack wider than about 1/16 of an inch on its own. For wider cracks, you need the calcium chloride paste I described earlier, or you need to pack the crack first with a dry silica sand before applying the solution, which is a technique described in a 1948 Portland Cement Association bulletin that was quietly pulled from circulation in 1961. It will not fix structural damage. If your foundation has shifted, if there is rebar exposure and active rust, if the slab has heaved from frost, no chemical treatment will solve a structural problem. It will not work on concrete that has been previously sealed with an acrylic or epoxy coating because those coatings block the penetration. You would need to grind or strip the existing coating burrs, which is a significant amount of work. But for the ordinary hairline cracks, for the spalling surfaces, for the dusting garage floors, for the weeping basement walls where water is seeping through because the capillary network has never been properly sealed, sodium silicate is not a miracle. It is simply the correct chemistry applied correctly at a cost the industry does not want you to know. The miracle, if there is one, is that this knowledge still exists at all, that it survived a century of deliberate suppression, that someone like Mildred Kramer thought to donate her grandfather's notebooks to a county historical society instead of throwing them in a dumpster, that a few Amish elders in Lancaster County still teach their sons the old way of mixing, that a handful of us are willing to put this on the internet and say out loud what used to be common knowledge. I think about what it means that a homeowner in 1925 knew more about maintaining his own property than a homeowner in 2025. I think about the quiet theft that represents. Every generation is supposed to inherit the knowledge of the one before it, and somewhere along the way, we stopped inheriting and started consuming. We stopped being capable and started being customers. A $12 sprayer and an $8 quart of sodium silicate is not just a repair. It is a small act of reclamation. It is taking back something that was yours all along.